Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to Sprocket. Today we're going to be looking at some vehicles which were submitted by viewers, by you guys. Some of you have made some absolutely stunning vehicles and they also perform quite well. So I decided to make this a series, and for that I'm going to need your help. If you have a vehicle made in Sprocket that you'd like me to show off here on the channel, then look it up, send it to me, that's stealth@stealth17gaming.com. I'll also put the email address down below. You can find your blueprint in Documents, My Games, Sprocket, Factions, Default. Now this is something that might change later, where Default might become one of your own factions, for example. Blueprints and then Vehicles. And then send me the file, which ends in Blueprint. Or the BP meta, but I think it's the .blueprint file. Today I'm going to be looking at various vehicles. 2 were sent in by JM and 1 was sent in by Canada Sam. We're first going to go over the ones from JM. Starting with the Ferdinand Mark I. Look at this beauty. Look at this beauty. Of course, there have to be some trade-offs between what works in the game and, on the other hand, what works in the real-life design. Because I believe that the Ferdinand was officially a little wider than 8 meters, but not by much. And some other things might not line up exactly. For example, you might not get the exact armor scheme right, or you might not get the exact gun performance. But overall, I think this vehicle looks beautiful. The spare tracks here on the front of the upper glacis. We got the anti-infantry turret, which as of yet doesn't do anything. A couple of hatches over here, some ventilation ports. And of course, the 88mm gun. This gun delivers a ton of damage on target. Elevation, not particularly fast. Don't go and use this thing in a position such as the map that I showed you previous, which was the ambush position. If you're getting ambushed and you quickly need to snap your gun around, this is not really the vehicle for that. But if you have an ambush position yourself, and you have some time to set this thing up, then you can deliver a whopping 2692 damage onto a target. Now, for reference, I'm going to load one of the stock vehicles, let's say the Col Talisman. That thing only does 1091. If you're looking at the Centurion, you're looking at 3500 damage, but then again, this is more of a post-war tank. But seriously, 2692 damage. With, and this of course is also important, 159mm of pen. Expect your reload to be significant, but not as significant as I thought it would be, because you're sitting sub 8 seconds with that thing. So that's still really good. Now, let's put this thing to the test. We're going to be spawning in a couple of vehicles, which, as you guys have taught me, if I just move the vehicle around, and if you then press Z, you can immediately spawn in a new vehicle. First, let's try and maneuver across these little blockades. I'm going to try and make these fairly standard tests. So we're going to have the... You guys getting seasick yet? We're going to have the obstacle course here. These ones, it takes a little easier, interestingly, because they're bigger obstacles. And the last one is going to be particularly difficult. But not for the Ferdinand. Look at this thing. I think it's because the Sprocket is so high up there. I think this vehicle has the idler in the back, the Sprocket in the front, so the tracks are being pulled upwards, and therefore even this part is not a problem. Final part, can it do trenches? Easy. Not as much as a hiccup there. So that was the maneuverability test. Turning around, I gotta say, it also does fairly well. So very well done here to JM for designing this Ferdinand. Let me bring the gun up, eventually, before I spawn in anything. Although, if I spawn in something, like a Col Talisman, I can immediately see how well the armor is going to hold up. Unfortunately, hello, they spawn right next to you. So let me do that again. I'm going to start from here, and we're going to spawn in the Col Talisman. Now I'm going to let this thing shoot me 3 times, just to see what it does. That's once, no pen. 2, nothing. 3, nothing. My turn. Bang, you're dead. With a gun this good. What do you expect? Alright, so that's one Crom Tilde. What if we're up against the Centurion? Shoot me. I'm mostly going to be checking the frontal armor, of course. That's one hit, no damage whatsoever. I think it takes a long time to reload, doesn't it? It's also maneuvering quite a bit, which means it's having difficulty keeping its gun on target. That's 2. Go on. 3 for 3. Boom. My turn. Bang, you're dead. Oh, this is a great vehicle. When it comes to armor, what do we have here? Because I imagine that we have quite a few different armor amounts. Look at that. That is, especially as you're looking at it from the front, 300 of effective millimeters of armor, 200 on the upper layer there. It is also heavily slanted here, which means that it's going above 300. When it comes to the turret, it does have a turret. Or, well, it says it does, but it's a fixed turret, right. So that's how he did it. The armor here is also very significant. Especially when you're looking at it from the front, like those tanks were. It's 210, about 215 millimeters of armor. Sidewise, this thing is going to be far more fragile, of course. Because there you're looking only at 80 millimeters of armor. But then again, you're supposed to use this thing from the front and don't get shot in the side. I suspect that the rear is also equally fragile. Yeah, 80 millimeters, 95, 107... And if we're looking at the turret, if you want to call it that, it is 80 millimeters flat. I once again want to ask your attention for just the beautiful detail on here. If you want to, and this is something more of a random detail, for example, the commander's cupola over there. If you want to add something like that and make it smaller, hold shift and scroll. And you can make it as big or as small as you like. Which leads to some interesting situations. Because I could have an absolutely ginormous machine gun on here, if you want to. Currently, it's only aesthetics, but eventually it might actually go and do something useful. Alright, so that was the first vehicle, the Ferdinand by JM. Moving on to the next vehicle by JM, which is the Jagdpanther Mark III. Far smaller, probably not as heavily armored. And by the way, it still has a lot of internal space, so you can put a lot of stuff in here in the form of ammunition. When it comes to the armor scheme, pretty heavily armored, but of course not as heavily as the Ferdinand. We have 156 there, and when you're looking at the turret, it is another 100 and, wow, all the way up to 180. Ideally, you want to use this thing hold down. So behind some sort of defensive work or trench or whatever you can find to hide your lower glacis behind, or well, your lower part of the tank. And when you're stuck in there, you let the gun do the work, which is another 88. It has also 2692 damage. It has the same amount of reload. And I think that this thing is going to have no problem defeating pretty much whatever you throw at it. Of course, time for the obstacle course. Does this thing have the same maneuverability as the other one? And again, the details really, really look good. This thing very smoothly takes the first obstacle. Second one. I suspect that JM went for a couple of very short track sections here. Also, oh, are we struggling here? Note the interlaced road wheels. No, it's not doing it. It's not doing the third part. It's too tough. Even with a little run-up, I don't think I can do it. Ahead, full. Nope, doesn't want to do it. Alright, finally then, the trench test. Let's see how well it does trenches. Come on. Get back. Turn. Oh, this thing is using clutch maneuvering. Right. Instead of a twin transmission, which means you can use one track faster than another, it just detaches a whole track. No problem. It's like the trench wasn't even there. Excellent. Let's move on to the gun test. Try and hit me with the Chrome Tilde. I think the Chrome Tilde just doesn't have anywhere near the pen. That's one, that's two, you didn't even hit me. Go on. Give it your best shot. 3, I think it created some artificial cover for itself. 4, my turn. It's the same experience, of course, as the Ferdinand, because the Chrome Tilde is once again faced with that mighty 88mm, which is very, very hard to defend against. Okay then, time for the bigger brother, the Centurion. Centurion, can you do better? I suspect the Centurion might be able to deal with this thing. Not quite. Now this is the first time that I'm reviewing these vehicles in this format, so I might change some things. I'll try to standardize these tests to some extent. That is, insofar as you can standardize things which are still in a game that's under active and heavily active development. Or if there are any things that I have omitted in a review of a vehicle, let me know, because then I can make sure that in the next video I do better. Alright, so that was both the Ferdinand and the Jagdpanther by JM. Oh, by the way, one thing I wanted to check out, the tracks. Well, track length isn't as short as I thought. It's 20mm or 20 centimeters. If I make these things shorter, I don't think it's going to really do that much for the maneuverability of the vehicle. I could just try switching the transmission. Here, the powertrain. I want to do that in twin transmission. And then adjust the transmission rates a bit to see if it can do better. Now, I'm not sure if the vehicle actually had this capability, but I'm going to try it and see if with the twin transmissions it can do a little better on the third obstacle. I'm stuck in gear 1. I just don't have enough power. Let's see, what sort of power system are you running here? You got 3600 max. That's a very powerful engine. I'm going to say I want to have about that. And I'm going to make this gear a little lighter. And same for the second and the third. That might be able to do something for this vehicle. Because then hopefully I'll be able to get up to speed faster. And climb that third obstacle. So this is as much of a review as it is another test for me on how to improve the transmission. Here we're back to gear 1. No, it's still struggling. Turn to the left. Stop. Turn. Forward. No, I think I made it worse. It simply doesn't have the RPMs. No, it really doesn't want to get up there. Alright, time to move on to the third and final vehicle of this particular week. The T-72 Terms T. This one was sent in by Canada Sam 101. He hails from the Royal Military College in Canada. And while you might think that this thing has explosive reactive armor, no it does not. But what he very niftily did... Whoops. I was not supposed to take that thing off. What he did was add all sorts of fuel tanks to the front. And apparently if these things get hit, they explode and therefore don't actually damage the tank. It's like they direct the explosion outwards like you would expect from explosive reactive armor. He says that he took this thing from War Thunder, where this is also a vehicle, so you might recognize it from there, and of course it is the classic T-72 shape. Pretty wide tracks, pretty wide fenders as well, wider than the tracks even. You got seemingly a very nicely sloped hull, and let's see how much armor that actually provides. So when we go back to the base and the hull armor, another 280, yeah, about 300 millimeters, depending on the angle. If you're looking at it directly from the front, you're looking at a maximum of about 400 millimeters of effective armor. So that's a thickness of 125 plus an angle of 71, 72 degrees. And that makes that makes this really, really difficult to pen. The whole vehicle weighs 41.7 tons. Upper, mid, rear, and lower are 40 millimeters. So, as you would expect, the tank is easier to pen from the rear. Then again, you're not supposed to have this thing exposed, of course. Turret armor, very, very potent as well. We got 190 to 200, but the upper side of the turret quickly rounds up to about 300 to 400, again depending on the angle that you have. Here, at a hit angle of 83 degrees, you're looking at 637 millimeters of armor. So if you can park this thing somewhat hull down and aim down, use the gun depression, you have a ton of armor. Firepower. We're packing a 125mm gun, which does 5,000 damage. That is little under double the amount that the Ferdinand put out. You're paying for this with a reload that's almost 15 seconds. But you can pen a whole lot and you have a really high muzzle velocity. So let's take this thing out to do a maneuverability test. Whoa! I forgot that you were out there. I appear to have some parts of my vehicle on fire, but that's only the external side of the vehicle. That's that fuel tank that blew up. Boom! I think they blew up another fuel tank. Do your worst. Maneuverability over here seems fine, although I wasn't quite planning on doing it this fast. Really creative use here, Sam, of the, let's say the armor scheme, if you will. I'm not sure if I even hit that. Maybe I have damaged something on that tank, because he doesn't really want to shoot me anymore. The fuel tanks slash external reactive armor are blocking my visuals a bit. Nope, I still managed to pen something else, but not the actual tank itself. More fuel tanks are exploding. I think one of them just popped off there. But what I was kind of trying to do here was the maneuverability test. So I don't need any opposition just yet. First, we're going to try and take these obstacles. Keeping in mind, the T-72 does not have a whole lot of ground clearance, but it seemingly has no problem dealing with the first one. The second one, very stable platform still. And, oh, then we come up to the third one, and we just cannot get over there. Nope, it really doesn't want to go. So the third one, no joy. Well, at an angle, it kind of works. Yeah, you have to approach it at an angle, and then it can take the third obstacle. And we're over. Trench time. Easy. The vehicle is slightly shorter, of course, than the Ferdinand, and I think similar to the Jagdpanther, but it doesn't have any problems going over the trenches whatsoever. So, let's see. Time to spawn in another T-72. You there. Take a shot. Take a shot. Do your worst. I managed to only hit one of their fuel tanks. Or rather, one of the explosive reactive parts. This fight's gonna last a while, isn't it? Come on. Come on. Oh, I popped off his fuel tank on the back. That might make his actual hull fragile. But he's not making it easy. Not sure where that shot went. Uh-oh. Turn! That was another fuel tank that popped off. Now, whether there's going to be reactive armor in a later version of the game, I don't know. Got him. But I think that this is a very creative use of fuel tanks. Very creative. This is one of the times when I'm quite grateful that the game does not have multiplayer yet. Because if you just coat your vehicle in these fuel tanks, it could make it very, very difficult to damage. And that's something that, of course, would need to get balanced out. Right. Well, I'd say that concludes the test of the T-72, the Ferdinand and the Jagdpanther. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, send me your vehicles and I will try and highlight as many of them as I can. Doing about 3 per week. I think that's a reasonable rate. And, well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys send in. Again, stealth at stealth17gaming.com. Send it in. You can find it in Documents, My Games, Sprocket, Factions, Defaults, Blueprints, and then your vehicles. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think I need to change/improve on the format. And I'll see you soon for more videos.